and affected by COVID-19, one of the most devastating disasters to hit this country. We embarked on a national mobilization exercise on education to vaccinate the people of Dominica and to immunize the people of Dominica against this deadly vaccine. Likewise, there's an urgent need for a national mobilization and educational process and program to vaccinate our people against misinformation and disinformation. And what is that vaccine, therefore? That vaccine I want to characterize is knowledge. You should know your right under the Constitution and other relevant laws of this country, as well as your responsibility. And who can provide that vaccine? Those of us and those of you with that knowledge has that moral responsibility to educate our populace and to avoid them from being misled, as we saw manifesting on the street on the 19th of March, 2025. There's nothing wrong in dissenting. There's nothing wrong in actually criticizing the policy of the administration. In fact, it is healthy for democracy. But there is something wrong to have personal issues with the leader of this country. And there is something wrong to want to see the back of this Labour Party administration without the people of this country, by way of an election, deciding so to do. So, under what authority the police acted, that will be actually litigated without trying to litigate the cases, because no charges have been preferred against a number of people. And the intention here today is not to litigate any of these cases, but for the police to provide an explanation as to why they acted the way they acted and why they are preferring charges. Now, the notion that you have a carte blanche right to protest without first seeking permission in keeping with the Public Order Act. You can go online on the government website and view the relevant laws for yourself. Chapter 1501 of the 2017 revised laws of this beautiful country. Section 4 says that anyone or any group planning to have a procession, which is defined as a march or a demonstration, must within 3 days of that commencement or the intended date, therefore, of that procession apply to the Commissioner of Police. On that case, or in that case, that was not done. Based on advice given to me by the then acting Chief of Police, he called a number of the organizers, some of whom have been charged, others who were not charged because they did not make themselves present. Two of the people he called was Attorney at Law, Mr. Joshua Francis, and Mr. Loftus Duran. None of them were present at that gathering. The others he spoke to were adamant that they're going to proceed with that march without the required permission. Now, let me go back to some historical facts. We all can recall that date, February 7th, it was the 7th, 2017. An application was made to the Chief of Police to launch or to host a protest action / meeting on Kennedy Avenue within the vicinity of the financial center. Incidentally, that day was a Tuesday when Cabinet was in session. We all knew and heard of what had been pronounced. Based on the intelligence received by the police, the Commissioner of Police did not approve of such a request for the hosting of that event. The law, therefore, requires the Commissioner of Police to refer it to the minister, whoever the minister is, Commissioner of Police referred that matter to the minister, who happened to have been at the time yours truly standing before you here today, recommending disapproval of certain application. I met with the Prime Minister. We both sat in the cabinet room, notwithstanding what the chief said, and we set aside the recommendation of the Commissioner of Police, and we said, and I responded to the Chief of Police in writing, so disagreeing with his recommendation and asking for this procession to have proceeded. We all learned the lesson thereafter. We all saw what manifested on the street on that night. Subsequent to that, a number of applications were made for similar activities. Permission was sought, permission was granted. I want to also say further that notwithstanding the fact that the Public Order Act requires of anyone, any individual, you're not belonging to the police force, the fire brigade, or school, you have to apply for permission to have such processions. Every Wednesday, you can recall, there were processions under the rubric of marches. But if you're walking on the street en masse, with music, with placards, shouting, "Scared must go," that is a procession. That is prohibited under our current laws. We had 179 such marches. The police never used any force to disperse, although they could have done so by law. That does not demonstrate or speak to a police force that is trigger happy, or speak to a police force that is repressive. It speaks to a police force that is tolerant, and on a number of occasions, even the own supporters of the Labour Party have sent me messages saying that blacks by never know yourself. But we understand what it is to run a country. We understand what it is for people to vent. But it does not mean to say, because you had protest action and it was peaceful, that it is illegal. That it is illegal. And we knew what transpired on a number of occasions during those Wednesday marches, where police officers were challenged, where barriers were actually attempted to be thrown down. Did the police use tear gas? The police did not do that. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of this government and people of this country to commend the police of Dominica for their tolerance and containment. That kind of behavior would not have been tolerated anywhere else in the Caribbean. Having said that, the Public Order Act in Dominica is less stringent and less far-reaching for most of the other countries within the sub-region. For a matter of fact, all the countries within the sub-region have Public Order Acts. And they are more stringent than Dominica. I want to take this opportunity to make a reference, because we have a significant presence of Dominicans living in Antigua, to the Public Order Act that is in effect in Antigua. I think it's chapter 357, I think, of the Antigua and Barbuda laws. To have a meeting, we must apply to the Commissioner of Police within 2 days. And 2 days. 2 days. And then, if you are non-national, in order to speak in a meeting in Antigua, you must get permission from the minister who is responsible for public order or national security. To have a microphone used in Antigua after 11, you must get permission so to do. In a while, I'm going to call on the permanent secretary, who is also an attorney at law, to read some of the relevant section insofar as the Antigua Public Order Act is concerned. Under Section 10 of the said Act, Public Order Act of Antigua and Barbuda, to have a match, you must apply to the Chief of Police within 3 days of that match. And there are certain obligations placed on the organizers and the leaders of those activities are held responsible and have an obligation to disperse and to be dealt with under the spirit of the law. And if you are aggrieved, if you were to apply to the Commissioner of Police in Antigua and permission is not given to you, you have 7 days to appeal to the minister, who can aggrieve the Chief of Police or set aside what the Chief of Police has recommended. And if you think I'm not talking the truth, I'm going to ask the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, who is also a lawyer, to read some of the sections, starting from Section 2, and we may want to stop at the Section 11. But yes, from 2, read from 2 to 11. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, up to 11. Yeah. Free, from 3. Yeah, 3. Not part 2. 3 under part 2. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Meetings, general provisions. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other law, but subject to Section 9. No person, may organize, hold, call together, or address a meeting in any public place unless a permit has been issued in respect thereof by the Commissioner of Police. Any person who desires to organize, hold, or call together a meeting in a public place shall, at least 2 days before the day on which it is proposed to hold such meeting, apply to the Commissioner of Police for a permit. Every application under subsection 1 shall specify a. the name or names of the person or persons desiring to organize, hold, or call together the meeting. Next slide. B. the place at which the meeting is to be held and the approximate time at which it is to begin, and the name of every speaker who is to address the meeting, and whether such person is a citizen of Antigua and Barbuda or a non-citizen. Section 5 talks about the grant of permit for meetings. And that section says, Section 5.1, the Commissioner of Police, on an application made to him under subsection 1 of Section 4, having regard to the preservation of public order and the interests of public safety, shall grant or refuse the application. 5.2 says that where an application is granted under this section, the Commissioner of Police shall issue to the applicant a permit for the desired meeting, specifying therein the times between which the meeting may be held, and such other terms as the Commissioner of Police may consider necessary for the preservation of public order or in the interest of public safety. Section 6 talks about permits required for non-citizens to address meetings. Notwithstanding that a permit Notwithstanding that a permit may have been issued by the Commissioner of Police under Section 5, no non-citizen shall address a meeting in a public place unless a permit has been issued to him to address such meeting by the minister. Any non-citizen who desires to address a meeting in a public place shall at least 2 days before the day on which it is proposed to make such address apply to the minister for a permit, and every application shall state the subject or subjects on which such non-citizen proposes to speak. The minister on an application made to him, and this section may in any case grant or refuse the application. Where an application is granted under this section, the minister shall issue to the applicant a permit for the holder thereof to speak at such meetings, specifying therein the subject or subjects on which the holder thereof shall speak, and such other terms as the minister may consider necessary for the preservation of public order. All right.
That's with 10 now.
You want to go to it now?
Yeah, that's with 10. That's
So
pretty
part
much.
3 speaks about marches and processions. And section 10 talks about the permit required for public marches. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other law, no person may organize, lead, or take part in any public march unless a permit has been issued in respect thereof by the Commissioner of Police.
Right. Let's look at 11 and let's stop there. Yeah. Section 11 speaks there. Yeah. Yeah.
Section 11, applications for permits for marches. 11.1 says that any person who desires to organize any public march shall at least 3 days before the day on which such public march is to take place apply to the Commissioner of Police for a permit. Section 2 reads that every application under subsection 1 shall contain particulars of A, the name or names of the person or persons desiring to organize the public march to which the application relates. B says that the purpose or purposes of the march. C, the point of departure, route and point of termination of the march. D, the hours between which the march will take place. And E, an estimate of the number of persons who are expected to take part in the march.
Okay. So, bring my back. Yes. So we'll take a pause and we'll go back to the PS in a while. And the reason for doing that was to make a comparative analysis as to what obtains in Dominica and what obtains in similar countries. Because after the event of March 19th, there was a series of misinformation as to what obtains in Barbados and other countries. In Barbados, also, you need a permit from the Commissioner of Police to organize any protest action or any march. And if it is unauthorized, the police has the right to disperse the crowd. So it is not true as to what some people who ought to be part of the vaccination process to immunize our populace against false information and misinformation. And they're the ones misleading unsuspecting people, the supporters, who have a genuine interest in the party. You have a right to support a party of your choice. You have a right to disagree with the ruling party in office. But once it gets to the point of offending the law of the country and getting an event that was unauthorized in the first place to degenerate into a riot, the police has every right under the law to act and to act reasonably. There's also the misconception that the Public Order Act is an antiquated act. It was first enacted in 1954. But laws are meant to be organic, to go through a series of evolution, a series of changes and amendments. There have been 4 subsequent amendments to that said act since its initial enactment into law. And it is consistent with the Constitution. Having said that, on Wednesday the 19th, notwithstanding knowledge of the intent of the organizers of that march, the minister responsible and the government did not invoke Section 7 of the Public Order Act, which provides a facility for any minister responsible for public order to invoke Section 7 and to issue a proclamation by way of an order and to prohibit any public meeting within any locality in the country or the entire country itself. We did not do that. But we stand in the information provided by the police to the minister and the prime minister. But going back to history, as a social scientist myself, I like to conduct content analysis of historical and secondary facts. And I'm not trying to throw the then Attorney General under the bus, but he was the Attorney General then. In 1996, there was no agitation in my community. A village, the longest serving member of parliament in the history of the constituency is yours truly. At the time I returned on vacation, there was a by-election in Maho. There was a meeting the Saturday before by the other party. The Sunday, you look, I see Mr. Lamar is laughing. Wonderful memories. The Sunday was supposed to have been the meeting for the Freedom Party, but I think the election was a Monday. Incidentally, the candidate was John Sebastian. The Section 7, with no agitation in Maho, with no demonstration, with no allegation or intelligence that there was going to be any public disorder in Maho. The government of the day and the minister responsible for national security decided that no meeting was going to be held in the village of Maho. And therefore, by way of an order that was gazetted in 1996, which I have before me, and I now therefore call on the permanent secretary to read the order. I'm saying that it is the same Public Order Act that those who are singing from the same hymn book for convenience, because of political expedience, they are saying it's not in line with the Constitution. I'm getting older, but I have fantastic memory. I'm very much functional. And I know all of us inside there, in the media, are also very functional and can recall. I now call the PS to read the order prohibiting a meeting in the village of Mao where members of the SSU were sent with M16 in the village of Mao when there was no agitation. The officers who stood before the barriers on March 19th had no M16. They were met with missiles. Vehicles were packed with missiles. They were attacked and they were fought with. There was nothing like that in Mao. All the party wanted to do, the Freedom Party, was to have had, during a by-election, an election. P.S. I call on you, therefore, to read this order for us, please, for those who have memory lapses. Thank you. You want to come there?
I can read it. So this order was made under Section 7 of the Public Order Act, Chapter 1501, which reads that the minister may by order prohibit during such periods as may be specified in the order the holding of any public meeting if at any time it appears to the minister that such action is necessary. And the order may extend to the whole of the state or any specific part of the state. So that is the enabling section as a section under which this order was made. And that order was made in 1996 by the minister under Section 7. Whereas it is provided in Section 7(1) and 2 of the Public Order Act that the minister may by order prohibit during such periods as may be specified in the order the holding of any public meeting if at any time it appears to the minister that such action is necessary And whereas the order may extend to the whole state or to any specified part or parts thereof, and whereas the minister considers that such action is necessary to prevent any breach of the peace and to maintain public order. Now, therefore, I, Edison C. James, Prime Minister and Minister responsible for public order and national security, do hereby order as follows. 1. This order may be cited as the Public Order, Public Meetings Prohibition Order 1996. 2. The holding of any public meeting or public rally within the village of Maho on Sunday, the 4th day of August 1996 is prohibited.
So, read the rest, the penalty part of it. Well, the penalty part of
Let me read the whole order. Yeah. Any person holding or taking part in any public meeting or public rally contrary to this order commits an offense. Penalty. Any person guilty of an offense against the Public Order Act is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $10,000 or imprisonment for 6 months. And that was made the 3rd day of August 1996.
Thank you very much, Pierce. Now, John Sebastian and the other members of the Freedom Party, who incidentally I came down to vote for in the by-election, did not even attempt to hold that meeting. They were hiding in the homes. Let me say it again for emphasis. Johnson Boston, and the other members of the Freedom Party, some of whom are saying now, all we're trying to have is a peaceful rally. He did not bother to leave his home. It were people like Arsenal and others, may so rest in peace, who were on the street and asking, what is that about? While Bosso was hiding. Okay? So I am putting that out as a means of education. And as I said, and I want to reiterate, the importance for us to embrace each other. Because we live in a very small community. I refer to Dominica as a community, which is homogeneous. We all know each other. You have a right, if you believe a government in office, from a policy standpoint, is not doing certain things right, to criticize the policies. But what is happening right now goes beyond criticism of policies. It's a blatant attack to unseat a ruling party. And I want to ask a question as I close to allow the Director of Public Prosecution to speak. If, let us suppose, the police were overpowered by that mob, can you imagine the crisis that would have unfolded in this country? Because the intention was to come into Parliament. Because over $14,000 was raised, I was told, and they were making provision to buy pilau. Up to now, we have not seen that pilau. Look, Matt, I don't think Matt got any pilau to eat. So we need to ask the question, where the money gone for the pilau and the squash? Because they thought they were going to have a huge crowd. But let us suppose, putting that joke aside, if they had made themselves to the precinct, not the precinct, to the halls of Parliament, and we would have a scenario where the Speaker had to run for his life and others, excluding myself. So we don't want that in this country. All because the Parliament was exercising its right under Section 41 of the Constitution to pass laws for the good governance and law and order of this country. And while you have the deputy leader, quite rightly so, a young man who wants to embrace reason, voted in support of the most profound piece of legislation, namely the Registration of Electors Act. Dominicans, what is happening in this country is not against Roosevelt Skerry, the Prime Minister of this country. It's against us. The Prime Minister, as a young man, has given his life to country. You may not agree with him, but he is the Prime Minister. The current administration represents we the people, by way of a majority. And as the Minister for National Security, and anyone else in another party would have done the same thing that I'm doing now, to act in defense of the country. Because the civility, security, and peace of this country depends, my dear friends, on the rule of law. It is premise on their premise, on the rule of law. So as I close, let me say again, we have a right to speak our minds. We have our right to protest. But if that comes with it, responsibility. And the only way we can mitigate against making future mistakes of that magnitude is to take the vaccine, inoculate ourselves against that evil spirit of misinformation and disinformation that has been spread by people who have one agenda. Some of them who believe that the ideas and the views are the only ones, and everything else are in fact subordinated to those ideas. Dominica has emerged over the years. We are supposed to be brighter people. We are supposed to be more rational. And we cannot allow 180 people to continually or continuously, to be more appropriate, taking on their own and to stone when they want and to fight the police when they want. This has to stop. I thank you very much. I now call the PS to introduce the Director of Public Prosecution, who would actually speak to some of the more fundamental matters insofar as the matters are concerned.
I now call on Ms. Shoma Dalrymple, the Director of Public Prosecutions, to give us a brief legal exposition.
Good afternoon all and members of the public. Short of high treason, the greatest form of breach of the peace known to British law is riot. This is the history of the offense of riot. It is an offense that in law is considered to be a serious offense. In Dominica, Jamaica, Antigua, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Kitts, Nevis, and several other Caribbean countries, riot is an offense. On the 19th day of March 2025, investigations into riotous conduct by the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force started. I first wish to draw your attention to that, contrary to various social media posts and opinion of members of the public, there is some form of illegality and police oppression by the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force is not accurate. The law of the Commonwealth of Dominica, as it stands, makes provisions for individuals who engage in riotous behavior to be charged, and upon conviction to be sentenced up to 5 years imprisonment. Again, as I emphasize, this is why the offense is considered a serious offense. It is an indictable offense. Now, our sentence is somewhat lenient as compared to the British. Yes, as of present, in Great Britain, this is considered an offense also, riot. But in Great Britain, the sentence is 10 years imprisonment, and you can also be fined or both. So you could be fined and confined. The law also makes unlawful assemblies an offense. These offenses are found in the Riot Act, Chapter 1002 of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force is charged with enforcing the law. Upon the individuals being charged, prosecution by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution ensues. Various individuals have also been commenting and saying that it was a peaceful protest and it is the constitutional rights of individuals to assembly. Undoubtedly, Section 11 of the Constitution makes provision for freedom of assembly and association. However, the right is not absolute. With citizens' rights comes citizens' responsibilities, and the Constitution recognizes this and has placed limitations in respect of these rights. Section 11, subsection 2 of the Constitution says as follows: nothing contained in or done under the authority of any law shall be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of this section to the extent that the law in question makes provision for A, that it is reasonably required in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health. It is my opinion that the case right now falls within that particular subsection of the law. That it is reasonably required for the purpose of protecting the rights or freedoms of other persons. That it imposes restrictions upon public officers that are reasonably required for the proper performance of their functions, and except so far that provision or, as the case may be, the thing done under the authority thereof is shown to be reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. I wish to end by saying this, and this is a statement taken from the case of Loftus Dura versus the Chief of Police. It's a June 2024 ruling. It's recent, and also it's a ruling emanating from the Commonwealth of Dominica. And thirdly, it dealt with the issue of riot and public order and the Public Order Act. And at paragraph 86 of this ruling, it is stated, sometimes decisions may have to be made under extreme pressure, and other times they may remain very difficult, notwithstanding time for analysis, and there may be a high level of risk that they turn out to be wrong. The question is always not whether, with hindsight, the decision was wrong, but whether in all the circumstances it was reasonable. With public order and national security being breached, with the security of Parliament, our symbol of democracy, being compromised. Based on the legal guidance, the police, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force, acted reasonable.
Thank you, Madam DPP. We'll now have a short presentation by the police. I will call the Acting Chief of Police, Mr. Lincoln Corbett, and the Acting Deputy Chief of Police, Mr. Geoffrey James, to do us the honors.
Good afternoon. The Honorable Reuben Blackmore, Minister for Legal Affairs and National Security, the Director of Public Prosecution, or PS, Ms. Commodore, the Deputy Chief of Police, Acting, Mr. James, other officers, gazetted officers, Mr. Anthony Laron, former AG of Dominica, the press. Good afternoon all. The police force in Dominica is the only agency in the state responsible to maintain law and order. On Wednesday, March the 19th, 2025, the Parliament of Dominica was convened to deliberate on 3 electoral reform bills, namely the Registration of Electors Bill, the House of Assembly Electors Bill, and Electoral Commission Bill. As per standing order, the usual procedures were put in place for the sitting of Parliament. Police officers were detailed to perform crowd and security duties at the House of Assembly and its precincts. Prior to March 19th, 2025, the ERC, that is the Electoral Reform Coalition, had advertised a public meeting, demonstration, protest for March 19th outside of Parliament and invited the public to attend and to participate. The main reason, as stated, was to prevent the passage of the 3 bills in Parliament, as I just announced. That is, the 3 bills dealing with electoral reform in Dominica. The Commander for Dominica Police Force had not received any requests from the ARC or any other group to host the proposed event. In an effort to ensure that law was complied with, the main organizers were contacted and warned against the hosting of the protest demonstration on that date, and also of the repercussions of hosting of the event without permission. Additionally, on the evening of March 18th, 2025, the Chief of Police then, acting, issued a public statement informing the general public that no permission was granted or sought as required by law to host a protest or a demonstration. Citizens were warned or they were advised that the proposed protest was unlawful, illegal, and they should desist from organizing or participating in the action. On Wednesday, the 19th of March, the police activated its operation plan. That is, a plan to secure Parliament and its precincts to ensure that the business of Parliament would have been conducted undisturbed. A number of actions were taken to ensure that the business of Parliament was uninterrupted. That included placement of barriers in strategic areas and policing those barriers with police officers. Barriers were placed on High Street in the vicinity of Dowasco, and also on Victoria Street in the vicinity of Fortin Hotel and the Newtown playing field. Parliament commenced at 10 a.m. on that date. Sometime later, people began gathering on High Street and on Victoria Street. High Street in the vicinity of the Wasco, and on High Street in the vicinity of the Fortune Hotel. They remained in the area for a while, and we observed that those persons who were gathered on High Street, most of them moved towards the area of Victoria Street. We surmise that this was done because the barriers closest to Fortune Hotel, were lower, shorter, and more vulnerable. We took action to ensure that we reinforced the barriers to prevent a breach of the barriers. That is, we reinforced it with officers, with police officers. The leaders of the protesters, of the people who were in attendance, held a meeting. And after the meeting, the people who gathered became agitated. They pulled onto the barriers and breached the barrier first time. The police officers, using just their hands, no buttons, nothing, were able to regain control and re-establish the cordon, the barrier. We also placed a second cordon closest to Fortune Hotel, sort of reinforcing the first cordon. The protesters remained in the area, And within half an hour to 45 minutes, they again riled up again and started pulling on the barrier. This time, they were successful in breaching the barrier. They removed the barriers, and just after that was done, stones and bottles and other missiles began being hurled at the police. At this point, the ACP acting, deputy acting now, read the proclamation, and the riot squad was activated. We had to resort to using lawful means to prevent the rioters from breaching barriers and getting to Parliament. As I indicated earlier, the sole intention of the rioters on the day was to get to Parliament to prevent the business Parliament going forward. That is, to prevent the reading of the free bills on that day. The rioters did not disperse fully and remained in the area for over 3 hours. The proceedings of Parliament continued and ended at 3 p.m. and the streets were unblocked, cleared at about 5 p.m. I wish to reiterate and emphasize that prior to the March 19th, permission had been sought from the police and granted for marches, demonstration, protests, and those protest actions went off without incident. The action of the rioters on the 19th of March was riotous, tumultuous, and unlawful. And had the police not taken action on the day, the business of Parliament would have been disrupted, and only God knows what else could have happened. Investigation into the matter, that is the riot of March 19, continues. At this stage, I will invite the Deputy Chief of Police Acting, Geoffrey James, to give you more insight on actual operations on the police on the 19th of March. Thank you.
Good afternoon, one and all. Protocol has been well established by the Chief of Police. I'll go straight into my presentation, the riot of March 19th, 2025. Now, to my slides, as you see, March 19th, 2025 riot. Addressing the March 19th, 2025 Roseau riot, the Deputy Chief of Police has announced and introduced, and the 11th of March 2025 is the day. The video, and we're going to show an aerial view of the protest location with reference to the streets and the gathering and the protesters. Short video showing this location. As the area, and that is earlier when the protesters were gathering, they're coming from all directions. And as you can see, the street was allowed for traffic to flow. There was no interruption except the protesters who were gathering there now. So as you realize, they are now going to prevent the flow of traffic around the roundabout, because traffic could have come from Turkey Lane, traffic could have flown around the roundabout from the Bayfront and as well from Castle Street. So their presence there as they gather, that was an earlier shot of them, as they gather would prevent the free flow of traffic. All right, let me give you a brief summary of the March 1919 riot. The location, as I said, was on the roundabout around Victoria Street, and it spills on to Demery Junior Charles Boulevard. The duration was from 10 a.m. to about 6 p.m. And as we speak to the scale was about 180 persons or rioters or protesters involved. Not too many people, but 180, as a speaker alluded to, can cause a lot of issues. Now, it boils down to a violent assembly and disruption of public order and endangering lives and property, consistent with a riot. That's a short video clipping of the breaching of the police barriers, and that is the second breaching. That cannot be peaceful. See stones and things. Just repeat. Now, we are not showing any individuals per se. We are showing a general view of the conduct of the protesters when the second breach of the barriers took place. Now, police maintaining order, as you see, the police officers are there quietly, nothing is happening, and that gives the impression of a peaceful riot. But as we said earlier, it was an unlawful gathering because they had not sought permission from the chief of police. So under the Public Order Act, the assembly itself was illegal, was not lawful. But that gives the impression of the tolerance of the police. Police are there, notwithstanding, until it boils down to something more serious. It turns into a riotous conduct. So here it is, the riot squad is in preparation for that, when it would have turned into a riotous conduct. But the police is there peaceful, as you say, and very tolerant. Here is the crowd being gathered in the same general area as I said. And the police again is there, trying to maintain order and peace with the rioters. But as I said earlier, later on you will see where it turns into a full-fledged rioters, where the police have to take action. Okay, then we go to the charges and accountability. 25 individuals to date have been charged for unlawful assembly. The charges include unlawful assembly under the Riot Act 1002 of 2017, assault on police officers, throwing missiles, and others. Now, consequences of violent protests. We have the economic impact, cost to repair property that was damaged, and to have police officers policing the event. Social impact, fear, disruption to business and residents. The legal consequences are you could be fined, you could be imprisoned, and there could be a criminal record if you are convicted for the matter. I just want to say on the public, we are committed to justice. We uphold the right to peaceful protest. Violence will never be tolerated. All suspects will face due process under the law. So we still call for cooperation of the public, notwithstanding that we have to arrest people and bring them before the court. The report could be anonymous via hotline 1-800-TIPS 8477-266-5153 or 266-5164 or 266-5165. And in ending, unity ensures peace and order. That is the end of my presentation with reference to the riotous conduct on the 19th of March 2015. And I just want to reiterate that no permission was sought, 2025, no permission was sought by the chief of police, by the organizers. The organizers were members of the electoral coalition, the other person supporters, and the upper echelon and supporters of the United Workers' Party. And not only they did not obtain permission for the unlawful assembly, they went round the island in broadcasting their intention to disrupt or storm parliament to prevent the passing of the bills. So obviously the police had to put structure in place to maintain peace and security. So again, the permission was not sought or given by the chief of police. So the assembly was unlawful on the day in question. Thank you very much.
Press interaction. Press interaction. Okay, that's what I was asking.
We're going to engage the press to ask questions as we normally do. And this government, as you have seen demonstrated by the Prime Minister, has always been open to the press. And there have been no other Prime Minister in the history of Dominica having so many press conferences and other ministries also. But I wanted to just make reference to the next historical fact where the road was blocked in a particular village. And because we also call on residents in the various parts of the country that you can have your grievances, but the public road is a public thoroughfare. That is, it means therefore people have a right to commute, to go to school, to go to the doctor, and it's never wise either to block the road, the main road. And in 1997, and before that, we had an incident in the village of Lai when the road was blocked, and people were arrested from according to my recollection. But in just to make reference to how it is illegal now, and it was also illegal then to block the public road. I want to make reference to an article of 1997 when the people of Koliwo, in protest and over the grievances of the mining activities that was taking place in the community of Koliwo, causing dust and of course, homes were being actually impacted, physically impacted. And the villagers blocked the road in protest. It was wrong then, it was unlawful then. And the Prime Minister was Minister for National Security at the time, was right in this pronouncement. I wanted to show that clip there. And you can see the Prime Minister is not Roosevelt scared. In 1997, he had no plans, just like myself, of being involved in politics. The Prime Minister then was a distinguished Dominican, Mr. Edison James. And the Attorney General is now sitting there. If I'm doctoring anything, you can see you're doctoring something. I'm not sure if you want to read, PS, I don't know, some of the, yes, from those responsible. Can you PS? Yes? No. Do you have a next mic?
I don't think you can take it now.
Oh, well, it's big enough, you can read it.
Those responsible for roadblockers to be prosecuted, I think that was the title.
Yeah, yes.
Those responsible for the roadblock in Koliwo have set a bad example for their very own children.
Don't laugh, that's
Very own children, the wrong lesson about discipline and must and will be held accountable. So said Prime Minister Edison James delivering an address at last week's graduation ceremony of the 22nd Police Recruit Course at the Police Training School at Montrose. The Prime Minister said he was looking forward to early recommendations on the situation and early prosecution of those responsible for the roadblock. He described this as an activity that was costly, short-sighted and unwise, and one which involved a violation of the law. This sort of demonstration intended to cripple the country in the hope of making cheap political points we cannot afford, the Prime Minister remarked. He warned that in any such future situation, strict and decisive action would be taken. expressing his strong concern about reports from police and various Dominicans indicating that many of those involved in the drug business are in possession of illegal firearms. Prime Minister James said that the government was giving serious consideration to increasing considerably the penalty for possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition from the current maximum of $2,000 or 2 years imprisonment. He said government was continuing to make provision to address the needs of the police, and he assured recruits that as long as they operate within the law, government will stand fully behind them.
Okay, you can stop there. Okay. Let us stop there. We have enough history there. Enough history. Now, the thing is, the Prime Minister then, who was the Minister for National Security, was right then. But the question to Mr. James, if then the blocking of the road in Colio was wrong, unlawful, people should be prosecuted, and it was crippling the economy, how do you characterize and define the blocking of the Eo-Libra highway in the area of Salisbury? And that's why I'm saying, before we take the question, we need to embark on a national mobilization and education to vaccinate and to immunize our people against misinformation, misrepresentation, and disinformation by providing information, educating the public on their responsibilities under the law as well as their rights. The floor is now open for questions.
Yeah. Good afternoon, head table. My question is for the minister, or the director of public prosecutions can also answer. The Constitution of Dominica gives Dominicans the right to protest, and that has been ventilated here this afternoon. At what stage does that protest become illegal? So the Constitution of Dominica gives Dominicans the right to protest. As I said before, that was ventilated here this afternoon. At what stage does that protest action become illegal? Can you answer
Again, this is, as the minister said earlier on, the misinformation that is one of the issues that is misconstrued in the public. There is nothing in the Constitution that speaks to the right to protest. Section 11 speaks to the protection of freedom of assembly and association. This is where the issue of having the public meetings, which the Public Order Act speaks to. But, as I indicated, subsection 2 of section 11 gives you the preamble for the limitations. What are the limitations? And it's laid out clearly. Reasonably required in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, public health. That's A. B. Reasonably required for the purpose of protecting the rights or freedoms of other persons. C. That imposes restrictions upon public officers that are reasonably required for the proper performance of their functions. So the statement being made about the right to protest. We have a Bill of Rights. Yes, it gives individuals, citizens in a country, certain rights. But protest, the right to protest is not in the Constitution.
What if you get that right from the police? If you get the right, can't you?
You cannot get it's not a right. You can get permission.
Right from the police?
Permission. You can be authorized by the police to hold a meeting.
Just a meeting?
A meeting, a walk. We went through the legislation, yes, under the Public Order Act. It can be authorized by the police. Demonstrations can be authorized by the police, but it's not a right that is in our Constitution, the right to protest. We do not have that. And that is a term that is circulating in the public domain about the right to protest. We have the right of freedom of expression. We have the right of freedom of assembly and association. protection of freedom of expression is at section 10 of the Constitution. And the Constitution is online. It's also at the Princery Department. So I would urge members of the public to educate yourself on what your rights are. You cannot be within a society and you don't know what your rights and what are the restrictions placed on these rights.
So when does the public have a right to protest?
The public has a right, according to the Public Order Act, to have lawful assemblies. Where you give permission, where permission is given, you can have a demonstration, but procedures
everything has to be given permission.
It has to be authorized by the police. That is the law.
Okay.
And Mr. Blackmore, while you answer that,
Because asked me,
yes, go ahead.
the director of public prosecution is so clear there, and I'm not sure what is it. She made reference to section 11 and 1, and she's making reference to subsection 2. I'm not sure what is difficult in understanding that. It says nothing contained or done under any authority of any law. You understand what I'm saying? Nothing contained in or done under the authority of any law shall be held to be inconsistent or in contravention of this section to the extent that the law in question makes provision for A, that is reasonably required in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, and public health. The Public Order Act speaks to public order, and that is where it gets its strength from, under subsection 2 of section 11. So the Constitution, therefore, gives the government the authority to enact law, okay, to place limit on one's freedom of movement, which is under section 10, on one freedom of expression. That is why, for COVID-19, we had restrictions. Okay? You could not have left the home because the Constitution provides that facility for that. And all of the countries I referenced, in Barbados, in Antigua, they also about Jamaica's Public Order Act. They all have constitutions similar to us, and they all have the same laws. So that's what I'm saying. So that subsection 2 gives the government the authority to enact laws. And if there's any other law, before the enactment of the Constitution, that is reasonable. But this is reasonable, Mr. Curtis Matthew, that you cannot just take on your own and come with a crowd on the East Lubbock Bridge, 8 o'clock in the morning, and say you're having a protest because they want the bridge to have 5 lanes. It would be reasonable for the police to say, okay, you can have the march, but it makes more sense to have it at the intersection of Riverbank and East Lubbock Bridge so that people can commute.
Would the police give permission, for example, for a peaceful protest?
No, I'm saying, you missed the point.
No, I'm asking.
You and I went to school together, I was the head boy before you. All right, but I'm saying, this is a very simple exercise. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's why I'm calling for a national, okay, mobilization to vaccinate. Huh? Yeah. But again, you heard that permission was not sought. The chief said so. The commissioner of police said so before. I said so on numerous occasions. I'm getting the most blows now in Dominica. But I'm cool. You understand? I'm cool. You understand? For speaking the truth, for standing for country.
Mr. Blackmore.
Okay? So there's no carte blanche right to protest. The right to protest means that you have to seek permission.
For peaceful protest.
Even if to have a demonstration, to have the law say procession, okay? Yeah. Procession. You can have even if you have a protest, a procession that is peaceful, and you did not seek permission, the police might decide they're not acting. It doesn't mean that it's lawful. Okay? I made reference earlier on to the 179 marches you had, the Wednesday walkers. They came down to free. They used to go to the gardens. I don't see them anymore. All right? And meditate.
Mr. Blackmore, right? please.
So I'm not saying.
I just heard
you have 2 lawyers there. And you have Mr.
I
Anthony
just-
Lawrence, Mr. Anthony Lawrence,
No, let's go.
Anthony Laron. We have two programs on our radio program. When you speak to the issue about, you want to say something there about that? Mr. I call it to the microphone. To
So just before you call Mr. Laron, sir.
No, come on.
Before you call Mr. Laron, your
Yes,
Prime Minister on the radio talking to Grenadian reporter, he said people have a right to protest. If you look at the tape,
Yeah.
and further, Mr. Blackmore, I'm speaking to a senior police officer right now as we speak. He says, permission, you're right. The preamble, that you're right to get permission to protest. But he says here that you need no permission to have a picket.
To what? To what?
To picket, to have in other words,
Well,
a sign up.
I am not sure what training school. Let me answer the first
No
part.
permission is needed.
Let me answer the first part of your question. I'm not sure which training school that senior police officer went to, because picketing is a protest. Once you have placards, and it's a demonstration. And I'm saying to you again, or you like to misquote the Prime Minister?
But you can look for the tape for yourself, sir.
Your right is not absolute. That's what you're trying to say to you. So that you have to apply for permission to stage a procession, which is a demonstration or a march under the Public Order Act. And let me just quote to you further. Under the Police Act, 1401, if you go to section 12, and you read it, the police has the authority to clear any public thoroughfare. All right? 1401. Okay? All right? To enter any place, public place, even if you pay to enter, and there is disorder, to put order into apparent people. To free the street of any obstruction. To regulate any procession. Let's just take aside the Public Order Act. Okay? Let us go under the Police Act, 1401. And Matt, I call on you. You have a nice voice. Get involved in investigative journalism. Do your research. Get people with the level of competence to interpret the law for you. Any lawyer who tells you that you do not need to get permission from the police to stage a protest, a demonstration, or whatever march is giving you ram good advice. You must ask, therefore, your good friend Jean-Charles Francis why he did not show up.
I can answer the question. I can answer the question. I can answer the question.
Okay? Because somebody called him and told him do not go.
All
He
right.
called the person, go back and tell the person, boy, that's the best advice you have given to me my entire life. All right? So I'm not going to call the person's name. All right? So I'm not saying to you, you are not hurting the Prime Minister or the country. You are hurting the country when you know something is not right and you're not providing the knowledge. I'm saying to you, I listened to the entire interview of the Prime Minister. He did make reference to the qualifying facts. He did qualify what he said. And that is why I'm saying to you, Matt, out of the function in post of yesterday, you called me after 2, I answered. And after, all hell broke loose. That is why your rating will go down. Your rating goes up when the Prime Minister calls. Because the type of people you have calling, you understand, your program, they're not going to help the country. They're going to decimate the Workers' Party. Because in them is resident hate, and we're not going to get anywhere. And they're not interested in learning. You get my point? What we're trying to do here, as you notice, is to put all the facts out there. But if the DPP, the chief prosecutor in the island, is speaking to you, and you and Curtis Murphy, my good friend, still has not understood, I think that we're in serious problem.
Mr. Blackmore, what we
If
basically
the spreaders of the information,
what we say, Mr.
Okay.
Blackmore, the people have a right to protest.
still have difficulty in understanding simple laws.
Yes.
Although I explain as to what obtains in other countries, try to go to Antigua and do a demonstration without permission.
But I just tell you, I speaking with somebody from Antigua that says they're right to pick it, like put placards
Anyway,
up.
we'll go there. You must go there next week and go and pick it.
Good opinion, let's go there. I'm going to speak in the public, let's go there. You're my partner. Next question.
Sir, I want to speak to the issue, and I want Mr. Jeffrey James to speak to that, because a lot of people around the world have been talking to me about the press freedom, and they saw an attack on the press during that demonstration. Mr. Jeffrey James, sir, acting commissioner, congratulations. Deputy, sir, what was the reason for this attack on the press?
I will seek to clarify this issue about attack on the press.
Okay.
The police, on the 19th of March, cordoned off an area, the area to operate.
Okay.
As I mentioned before, we had barriers on High Street. We had barriers on Victoria Street by the playing field, also by Fortune Hotel. If you look at the video properly, you will see where the reporter from MO News sneaked in after the barriers were displaced. You can see where she sneaked in, and I looked at it many, many times. She was simply being asked to remove herself from the area where she was operating. Additionally, if you listen to the video by the reporter from MO News, she was making a lot of comments. A lot of comments that were inciting the crowd and inciting people. I listened to it. You may make reference, you may want to mention that Curtis and Kewana and Riceman were there. But they were asked to move, and they moved with no hesitation. They walked away. And they were well within their work environment. DBS radio was within the cordon. But Curtis and Kewana, they walked away. And the police can determine who remains within the operating area and who goes out. We decide who stays within our area. That's how it is. But it's not a question of attacking the press. At all. I hope that really clarified the issue of what happened on the day. But if the reporter had simply walked out when she was asked, and she was asked by many officers, not only the DCP, ACP, to move from our area, and she refused.
Another question to follow up there, as you're there. Sir, I'm being told, and a lot of people seem disappointed in Mr. Jeffrey James, and another police officer who slapped, clear video, it was not shown here, slapped an individual there, a protester, if you want to call it that way. Will any disciplinary action be taken against these people?
I have seen many of those videos, and the alleged slap that you saw. The
alleged, you said?
Well,
okay, go ahead.
I'm answering. The person who was allegedly slapped have not complained to the police. No report was made against any police officer for slapping him. None, zero, zilch. So to suggest that the police is not investigating, what are we going to investigate? Nothing, no report was made at all, none. Up to today.
Are you denying it happened, sir?
Well, I'm telling you, Mr. Peltier, that no report was made. I'm not saying that what you saw didn't happen, but I'm saying, but no report was made. None against any police officer for slapping or for doing anything illegal.
Yeah. My question is to Jeffrey James, the acting deputy police chief. My information suggests that the police would need at least 24 people arrested and charged to file the case before the court under the Riot Act. If that has been achieved, I'm told that your investigations into the matter continue. Can you explain on what basis that you're continuing? The fact that you already have 24 people arrested and charged.
Some 25 individuals have been charged under the Riot Act. We have 2 investigators. Each complaint must have at least 12 persons or more. In other words, to constitute a charge, you must have 12 persons or more on the complaint. So we have had 25 persons charged. That doesn't mean to say we are limited to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 30, 40 people. As many can be charged under the Riot Act, 12 or more. So investigation continues with reference to this matter.
Okay.
Okay. If I mean, we have a discussion there. And on the section 12, on the section 6, sorry, of the Riot Act, that speaks to 12 or more persons, or people, sorry, the word is person, one-on-one person, people. So more than 12 people, 12 or more, the proclamation has been read, and you remain an hour thereafter. You run and you come back, you get your tear gas, you get the rubber bullets, you still came back, you still on the PA system, you still dancing the checo, by scare, yeah? You're there, you're still telling people the bills have been passed, but we're still going to continue. The police have to still after 6 to clear the area. And the order was read, the proclamation was read as is required under Section 5 of the Riot Act. You can review online 1002, okay, of the Dominica laws, which was revised in 2017. You can read it. And in the process, after the proclamation had been read under Section 5, and 12 or more people remain, after you have been asked to disperse, to go to your lawful place or your home or your workplace, wherever, and you remain, and you're still agitating, the police has a right and mandated by law to arrest everyone who was present at that scene. And in attempting to arrest or apprehend people, and if the people are attacking the police by throwing stones, which is a missile, and the police use reasonable force, and somebody gets injured, the police cannot be charged, cannot be held liable under law. The police is protected and insulated under Section 6 of the Riot Act. No action can be taken against the police if you acted reasonably, and reasonable force can be assessed based on the circumstances. Because if you file a live wrong at the police, and the police respond in live wrong, okay? And that is why I'm saying it is so important to educate the public when they are sleepwalking, being misled by the leaders, that the police cannot be charged in a situation where you have a riot and they've been attacked and violence has been used, rocks have been thrown. God forbid if somebody if somebody in the crowd, as Mr. James said in 1997, some people had guns and live wrongs were fired at the police. And if the police respond, having received a live wrong, and respond to live wrong and somebody died, the police cannot be charged. That's what read Section 6 is entire article is. And understand that. Okay. I want to say further, Matt.
Yes, I'm listening.
Listen to Mr. James, the deputy spoke about. There are certain things, because the matters are being litigated before the court, there are certain things that cannot be said. But some of the videos that you saw showed the partial activity. But praise God, your government, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, we have been able to invest and to properly monitor events from all angles, live too. So you must ask one of your leaders, when the proclamation was read, why he went by Gara Hotel with his harp and his guitar. Why he never came back to the scene? Ask a question. I don't call a name. Today not come on the carnival. I choose not to call that name. But his voice was pre-recorded being played on the scene. Why the marshals and them still on the scene with the PA system, live and challenging the police. But one leader, I don't call the name, that's because one leader went at the entrance of Gallery Hotel, in front of a hotel, and played his guitar with one chord. And another leader who was caught live, along with Washbank Coffee and others, who came on Hanover Street, High Street area to look to see, they were being seen live, whether there were any crevices, any loopholes they could have passed. There was one who was very aggressive. Why he disappeared? Why Loftus Jura had a convenient flu on that day? And why, Matt, you were there, but you were there as a reporter? Okay? You had your phone, I didn't see any stone. You were not taking, you were just a reporter, you were there doing your work. You understand? So if the police are persecuting people, why they have not picked you up? Yeah, besides what I'm saying. Right? Why didn't they pick up Carla? I saw Carla running south very early. You see if you should that, you don't cover in that, you run away. If it's back, and it's secret, don't go there, secret. And secret call him back and say, boy, that you are my only good friend. That's the best advice you have given me in my life.
Mr. Blackmore, question to you, sir. There are suggestions that not enough education is being done by the Ministry of National Security. I know you mentioned about the 2 radio programs, but we saw a number of people, what we can say, out of ignorance, went there, who probably, if they had probably listened or known the law, maybe would have avoided what happened to them. But what are your plans as the Ministry of National Security, Minister of National Security, to go into the highways, the byways, hold town hall meetings to educate the people? Because maybe not everybody has the time or will listen to the radio program.
I think the Ministry of National Security is known for having too many, sometimes we have been told we have too many press conferences. But that's a fair comment. We have a radio program every second week on DBS Radio, second Thursday. We have invited Carry FM to join. You told me we need to have an agreement with DBS to do that. All right? We have been having outreach programs. We were in Granby. We were in Silver Lake. We were in Bath State. We have started to do some work in Wesley. So we'll be going back Wesley very soon to meet the larger community. We have done some work in Point Michel. Okay, and then we have our normal press conferences, the ministry, and we'll be having one very soon again. All right? We had Mr. Anthony Laron on this very same topic on the British Radio, repeated several times, where you looked at the various sections under the Constitution, vis-a-vis the Public Order Act and the Riot Act. And all these things were ventilated. And it's there now. And we can play it again. You asked me that you wanted to play it over. Okay? But I agree with you, and we intend to intensify that effort to go across the country and to talk about matters of importance. But again, the government is not the only agent of information. The political leaders, right? The civil society, the churches, the bar association, all those various fraternities equally are responsible to assist in the vaccination against misinformation. And that vaccine I speak about is knowledge, education, and I agree with you. So joining force, and of course, joining the Prime Minister, he had this program on the parlay. And I mean, let us be real. The various ministries having the press conferences, right? But the government alone cannot do it. Have you heard a statement except from Pastor Griffin, from the churches? Growing up, I know I'm older than you, in the days of Bishop Bogart, a statement would have been made, because the churches have to be guided by the spirit of discernment, and to come out and to denounce and to condemn violence, irrespective as to which party that's in the office, irrespective as to whether you vex that the Prime Minister is in office for too long. You represent your symbol of Christ. A symbol of Christ embraces what is sacred, not what is profane. And that is why I'm calling for a national mobilization of an education to inoculate this nation against misinformation and mischief to a certain extent too.
Question, sir. Please,
Yes.
question.
We have to end
And
it
this
now.
is coming from, we have to end very soon. This is coming from a former top government minister. He says, please ask Mr. Blackmore, any person there, to read the section of the Public Order Act which provides for permission to be obtained for a public meeting.
What? That person was whom?
A senior public government minister.
A minister?
Yeah?
Or a
Senior,
minister sat in cabinet,
senior.
I guess.
He says, please read, I'll repeat again, the section of the Public Order Act which provides for permission to be obtained for a holding of a public
Okay,
meeting.
Section 3 says about the need to apply for a permit. Section 4 spells out the statutory obligation and the requirement that says that you have to apply to the chief of police within 3 days of that intended march procession, stating the time and the route. Isn't that so? That's correct. That's Section 4 says. All right? All right? That's what it says. And then, if the commissioner of police cannot say no, he can say no, but if he says no, he's obligated by the law to refer it to the Minister for National Security. All right? Okay? All right? So, I'm not sure who that senior minister is.
A very senior minister.
All right. If it's very senior, I have an idea as to who. He and I talk sometimes. I know it's not Australia, but I'm not going to call him.
That's what?
But my mother used to tell me lang moshi lang kabwit. Understand? So I know it's that. So I'm not sure, folks. I mean, these memory lapses we have there, it's not scary with the Prime Minister. We're mashing up, you know. We are mashing up the civility of this country. Society cannot thrive with the absence of civility. Okay? When we are born as human beings, we are born with our own self-preservation. But as we socialize, we understand for there to be order and for us to coexist, we must give up that authority to a central agency, which is the government, to enact laws. That's why we have laws. We have the police force. We have the courts. The courts serve as the final arbiter of facts. When you have grievances, whether it's criminal or civil. That's how society thrives. And if we're to be guided by the writing of Max Weber, who says that we are living now in an era where we're supposed to be more rational. When you're more rational, you're supposed to be guided by facts, analyze using the gray matter within your brain. You see, and that is why we have a situation whereby all of a sudden our position changed. Our position changed because you have a beef with the government. So what happened on the 19th, it is wrong for every normal person. But some people who remain obstinate on their own views, because they want to see the back of the Prime Minister and the Labour Party administration, anything that is done that is going to lead to that possibility or possible eventuality is okay, but that can't be right.
Mr. Blackmore, another question to you,
Yeah,
sir.
but
I have two questions and we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Mr. Blackmore, one of the persons arrested, as you said, and charged, is asking the question. I have to protect the person, of course. Ask Mr. Blackmore, when did the acting police commissioner call the alleged organizers? Maybe the commissioner can answer that one. Ask Mr. Blackmore, when did the acting police commissioner call the alleged protesters or organizers?
Anybody who is charged, I'm not going to speak about that. I can say to you that the acting commissioner of police was obligated, you can reach 1401, section 4 of 1401. Right? Now,
When?
You must read it. So, from what I was advised, some of the people were called, and I can call. One of the names that was referred to me was Mr. Joshua Francis and Mr. Loftus Duran. I can call the names because they're not being charged. They're not. Okay. And then I'm not going to call the other names. He spoke with. And Loftus said, I listened to Loftus said that he was called and that he did a job for the commissioner of police. He carried a chip for him and the commissioner of police paid him well, etc. Understand? And then he even condemned the violence. And he said he's in solidarity, but on that day he had the flu. But that flu is very bad. That flu is very bad. I'm not going to that. That flu is very bad. But for you to have a flu for 10 hours, you had the flu on Wednesday, and the next day, 6:30 in the morning, the flu gone. He's well vaccinated.
Separate from what I'm asking you now.
Yeah.
There's an allegation going around that your port officers, I'm talking about airport officers, seem to be doing some selective or random searches on persons that maybe not supportive of your government. As a matter of fact, we got two reports, and they called the airline, and the airline denied everything. They said they were searched, and there was no reason to be searched, and they said the airline was responsible for random searches. So I'm saying, is there something going on that we're not aware with?
But what is the relevance of that question?
No, I'm just saying.
What's the nexus between what we're talking about now?
I'm just saying, I said separately.
Well, that's separate.
Is there something going on?
No, I cannot comment on port security. For matter of fact, let me give an example. My son came down once, and his name came up for a random check, and you were searched. What is that? It's a normal practice to go overseas, irrespective as to who you are. They search you. So what is an issue you've been searching Dominica? But I cannot comment on that.
Because the officers saying that's the airline responsibility, and the airline is saying that's not true.
I cannot comment on that. Okay, I think the security.
The port officer is saying that's the airline responsibility, and it's not true.
But if I'm saying,
I can play the voice of the person who called the
saying
airline.
to you, I am not going to attempt to answer a question that I have no level of competence to comment on. What I can say to you is normal practice to have random searches at airports in Dominica, as to wherever you go to. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not sure why you're asking that question, because everything happening in Dominica is being directed by the Prime Minister. So right now it's Blackmore, or the hot and Blackmore, or making a mistake, eh?
Mr. Blackmore, you don't
make a big mistake.
I have the voice of the passenger, you know.
You understand? Right? So I'm just saying that let us stop doing that, man. The borders of the country has to be secured. So I have no part in who being searched at the airport, neither the Prime Minister. I know that's not going to get to. All right? My advice to you, when you're traveling, make sure you don't have crabs with you.
Crabs?
Yeah.
I don't need crabs.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think we have to wrap it up. Yeah. That's it? Any other question? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, the fact is, I think it was a very spirited, respectful. You'll appreciate press conference. Thank you very much. The ministry will be having a press conference soon, where we look at actually highlighting some of our departments. Listen next week Thursday to DBS Radio from 8 o'clock to 9:30 for another program. If you want 8 p.m. Sorry. If you want Matt, you can link up with DBS Radio, and we can pay you. Yeah. Yeah, no question. No call, yeah. All right. So this administration under the leadership of the Prime Minister is the most transparent administration we have seen in the nation of Dominica. I cannot recall any Prime Minister being more available to the public. At his home, at his office, he goes overseas, press conferences, and right now, Martin and Vex go to another pool party. Understand? All right? I think it's a good thing that the Prime Minister is barbecuing chicken for the people of Dominica. Okay? All the Vex are not there. My message to my phone and tell me if I support that. All right then? And people drinking, there was no alcohol from what I was advised. People, the young ladies over there were sipping the virgin pina colada. Nice thing. I don't make a big issue of that. It demonstrates this is the Prime Minister who is open to the people. It's not so? Open to the people and serving the people. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Election soon? Election soon?
Huh? Huh?
I was asking Matt about election soon.
Well, let me just say something. Something aside. My advice to the Dominican is to get involved in the confirmation process and to go en masse to get them confirmed, because the writings are on the wall. And despite what some are saying, that after the confirmation process would be over, a new list will emerge. And people who did not, people whose name are already on the voters list, who did not show up to confirm the names, will be deleted from the list. So there shall be a new list. So you have no requirement in law to be a resident of Dominica in a particular address for 3 months to confirm your name on your list. You have a right, once the name appears on your list, to confirm your name on your list. And once you have done that, under Section 52 of the Registration of Electors Act, once you're confirmed, you are now duly registered as a voter who shall be issued with a voter's card and to exercise your franchise and to vote for your party of your choice and your nominee of your choice.
Can you tell us, sir?
Huh?
Can you tell us?
Before they go and say which was on the press, you ask a question. I cannot tell you what's in the Prime Minister's head. The Constitution is the Constitution. The only person who will ever have competence to decide when the election can be called in this country is the Prime Minister. Okay? That's why some of the guys vexed. The bills have been passed. So the bills who are sending into law on the 21st of March, the Commission has 30 days to prepare the people of Dominica before, within that time, they can issue an order declaring the period within which that must be confirmed.
Will you have a candidate?
Huh?
Will you be a candidate this time around?
A candidate? But you can't ask me, I've retired. If you want me to come back, I can come back, you know it's trouble. But if certain people want to come back, I'll come back and mash them up. If boss will come back, I'm going to come back. But for now, I've retired from active politics.
Is that true? You retired?
Active politics.
Active
As a
politics?
candidate. But I'm saying if boss comes back, because he ran in 2008 to split the votes and he got 54 votes.
How many?
54. And the area, the polling district, where his mother and sister was voting, they got 0.
There's refreshments, please. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, officer, for your assistance. Officer Robinson.
Didn't I swear?